How's it going, my peeps? It is now time for the Raw results / highlights and review video. I'll go over the results, some of the highlights in my opinion, and give you guys my thoughts, my review on the show. So it kicks off with, right when the show kicks off, when the show starts, you see the crowd, and the crowd is already going wild, chanting for CM Punk. CM Punk, it's a loud crowd. And then CM Punk's music hits right off the bat. And then you see everybody's going crazy, people chanting CM Punk and just cheering loudly. And like, you don't see Punk. You hear the music, and you hear it for a while, you don't see anybody come out. And at that point, I'm like, alright, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody else comes out or nobody ends up coming out. Actually, I was expecting somebody else to come out instead. To my surprise, it was Paul Heyman. It was surprising seeing as how CM Punk hasn't, he stopped his feud with Paul Heyman a while back. But anyways, Paul Heyman comes out, and the crowd starts booing. But afterwards, they continue chanting CM Punk, CM Punk. You can tell this is like an epic crowd. And before he talks, he sits down like CM Punk does. And he talks about this Paul Heyman guy that had too many tattoos, that didn't have the look or this and that. Basically talking about CM Punk. And he tells the crowd that CM Punk is not here tonight, to which they boo. And then he says, but he points the finger, like he puts the blame on somebody, because he has to do it, And he points the blame for CM Punk not being here tonight on each and every single one of you, pointing to the crowd, saying that, they took CM Punk away from Paul Heyman, and because of that, CM Punk also, they also took away CM Punk from themselves, which is why he's not here tonight. But anyways, he kind of transitions it into Brock Lesnar and the Undertaker streak, starts talking about Taker and who's going to break the streak, and there's like this one guy that can break the streak, and he brings out Brock, and he hypes up Brock. Brock talks too, and he says, people have tried to break the Undertaker streak. He goes over a couple guys, including CM Punk, which he says, even your baby, to the crowd, CM Punk, and then he says, he's going to end the streak. And that's pretty much it. They go to leave, but then Mark Henry's music hits. And then, of course, he's looking to get some revenge on Brock for beating him up on 2 occasions. So then Brock kind of backs away. He backs away, goes on the other side of the steel steps, but then runs toward the steel steps, jumps on them, and then tries to jump on Mark Henry, but Mark Henry stops him with a forearm to the face. And then eventually when Brock gets up, Brock kind of Irish whips Mark Henry into the steel steps, grabs the steel steps, hits Mark Henry in the face with it, and then he takes off whatever is on top of the announcer's table and the monitors, picks Mark Henry up for the F5, hits it, and puts Henry through the announcer's table with the F5. And then Brock tells Mark Henry, you picked the wrong nights, and that was it for that. Following that, it was the New Age Outlaws versus the Usos in a Tag Team Championship match. And New Age Outlaws were going to do their, usual hype up of the crowd before the match. But Road Dogg, asks the crowd if they're ready. They say yeah, but not, not too loud or not loud enough. So Road Dogg says Chicago's not worthy of, his promo. And then Usos came out for the matchup. And, in a surprise title change, well, I just kind of gave it away. Well, I did. The Usos won the match and became the new Tag Team Champions. I think it's a good move that they did it in Chicago, where, of course, the crowd is really hyped up. The crowd is loud. It's a great crowd. So they also got a great reaction. And the match ended when one of the Usos, the one that's legal, the one that's in the ring, hit a freaking outside dive. Well, a dive from inside the ring to the outside on, I believe it was Billy Gunn on the outside. And while he was doing that, he tagged in the other Uso. And then so he landed on Billy Gunn on the outside. The other Uso gets in the ring, super kicks Road Dogg, climbs up the top turnbuckle, hits the body splash, and gets the victory. Usos win the tag team titles for their first time. And then after that, they show a video for Aaron Paul's movie. And, you see the Divas, they talk about Aaron Paul and how apparently he's gonna give Dolph Ziggler a ride in his car. And Oksana says she also wants a ride in his car. And then Alicia Fox says, "What do you mean?" And then she says, "Because she likes fast cars." I don't know, it was a really awkward segment, guys. Anyways, following that, it was Big E Langston versus Cesaro in a rematch from last week. And they talk about how last week Jack Swagger got, Antonio Cesaro disqualified. So anyways, right when the match begins, Cesaro catches Big E kind of in midair once again and hits a tilt-a-whirl backbreaker. And then shortly after, Big E ends up on the outside and Swagger, I think, tries to attack him once again. So Big E takes him down, gets back in the ring. And then a few moments afterwards, Swagger gets in the ring and hits the Swagger Bomb on Big E, of course, causing a disqualification once again for Cesaro. So then Cesaro and Swagger argue, and Swagger gets out of the ring, and then Big E gets up and hits the big ending on Cesaro. And then Swagger and Cesaro keep arguing, and that's it for that. And following that, it was actually the Shield making their entrance for their rematch against the Wyatt Family. And that match starts off in a pretty action-packed way. After the Wyatt Family make their entrance, I think before they get inside the ring, Seth Rollins hits his flipping senton on one of them, and Dean Ambrose, I think, hit a suicide dive on the other. And then inside the ring, Bray Wyatt goes inside, and Roman Reigns hits a Samoan drop on Bray Wyatt, and then throws him out of the ring, and then Luke Harper gets in the ring, and Seth Rollins charges him, hits a drop kick, and then they go up top on the top turnbuckle, where Luke Harper goes for the same spot he did at the Elimination Chamber, the German suplex from the turnbuckle. But once again, Seth Rollins backflips out of it, and then he clotheslines Luke Harper out of the ring, and then drop kicks Eric Rowan, who got on the apron, and then he hits another flipping senton on Luke Harper, then quickly gets back in the ring and hits another flipping senton, this time on Eric Rowan. And then he gets back in the ring, and he tries to go for some sort of top rope move, but Bray Wyatt tries to interfere. He goes inside the ring, so Ambrose also gets inside the ring and starts brawling with Bray Wyatt, like right in front of Seth Rollins' view of Luke Harper. So Seth Rollins, I think he got taken off the top rope or the top turnbuckle from Eric Rowan. And after getting beat up a bit by the Wyatt family, Rollins tries to tag in Ambrose or Reigns, but they're on the outside arguing, so because of that, there's nobody to tag in. But eventually, Ambrose gets in, and anyways, the end of the matchup. Towards the end, Ambrose is the legal guy, and he tries to get a tag. He clotheslines, I believe, Bray Wyatt, and tries to tag in Seth Rollins. Because Reigns at that point wasn't on the apron. He got taken off the apron by either Luke Harper or Bray Wyatt, I'm not sure. But he got taken off the apron, so Seth Rollins was on the apron, though. So Ambrose tries to tag in Rollins. Rollins, though, actually ditches Ambrose, and he gets off the apron, then goes on the ramp, and then Reigns gets up, and he's like, what are you doing, And Rollins says, I'm not going to be the glue that, keeps us together or whatever. He's tired of, being the peacemaker of the team. And Michael Cole on commentary pointed out, Rollins was trying to tag in, but they were arguing. And also, when Ambrose and Bray Wyatt were fighting, like, right in front of Seth Rollins when he was trying to go for a top rope move, Reigns was also yelling at Ambrose at that time, telling him, what are you doing? What are you doing? But anyways, Seth Rollins ditches them. But he stays on the ramp the entire time, just watching the match. And then at some point, Roman Reigns, or actually, Dean Ambrose gets pinned by Bray Wyatt. I think Bray Wyatt hit that crossbody of his on Ambrose, covers him. Reigns quickly gets back in the ring, interrupts the pin, and then he throws Bray Wyatt out of the ring. He hits a Superman punch on, I think, both Bray Wyatt and... Oh, no, actually, my bad. He hits a Samoan drop first on one of them, and he hits a Superman punch on another, and like I said, he threw out Bray Wyatt, I think. And eventually, Roman Reigns, who's on the outside, spears Eric Rowan on top of the announcer's table, and then Ambrose, or Luke Harper, I mean, goes for a suicide dive onto Roman Reigns on the outside. He hits it, and then Ambrose jumps on top of Luke Harper and starts punching him a couple times. And then Bray Wyatt grabs Ambrose and shoves him onto the ring post, puts him back in the ring, and then he hits Sister Abigail, covers him, and wins the match. The Wyatt family beat the Shield once again, and then you see Seth Rollins looking on, kind of like, he didn't really want to do what he did, or he regrets, doing what he did. Afterwards, you had Renee Young interview Batista, and the crowd was booing Batista. Well, first off, he says the yes movement is stupid, or he says it's the dumbest thing he's seen or something like that, and he also talks about how, people look up to Daniel Bryan, this and that people like Daniel Bryan will never be, or will never beat. I didn't really hear if he said be or beat. I'm assuming he said beat because he has a match with him. He said guys like Daniel Bryan will never beat him, and the crowd or the WWE Universe will just have to deal with that, or actually deal with it. And then after that, it was a mixed tag team match, Summer Rae and Fandango versus Santino and Emma. Santino and Emma win the match up when Emma locks on the Emma lock on Summer Rae, and she makes her tap out. And then you had Christian versus Sheamus. They showed a replay of what happened on SmackDown with Christian attacking Sheamus in his match against Del Rio and then hitting the kill switch. And as expected, Christian lost. Sheamus won the match once again. And he won the match this time by hitting a bro kick from the apron. Sheamus was on the apron, and Christian was right, on the ropes inside the ring. And Christian also hit the frog splash in the matchup, but Sheamus kicked out. And it was a good match, but the crowd was just not interested. They didn't care about the matchup. They even chanted "This is awful" during the match. And they were booing when the match wouldn't end, when somebody would go for a pinfall and be like a near count or a near fall. But I didn't think the match was awful at all. I thought it was a good match. But yeah, anyways, Sheamus wins, like I said. And then backstage, Renee Young interviews Sheamus, and that's after they come back from commercial. And Sheamus talks about coming back from injury. He doesn't get to talk too much before, and I could tell Christian was going to attack just from the way the camera was angled. Usually you can tell from the way the camera's angled, but anyways, Christian attacks Sheamus, and he hits him with there's a light, and he hits him with the light a couple times. He hits him with it in the gut, and then hits him a couple times afterwards. And basically telling Sheamus that he hasn't gotten rid of him. And then they had a Divas Tag Team match. It was the Bell Twins versus Alicia Fox and Oksana. Nikki Bella wins the match of her team once she hits the torture rack on Alicia Fox for the 3 counts. Afterwards, Daniel Bryan comes out, and I was thinking it was for his match against Batista, but instead, he says he's staying in the ring, and he's not leaving the ring until one of 2 things happens. Number 1, Batista comes out for a fight, for the matchup. Or number 2, Triple H answers his challenge. And then Triple H music hits. And after, Triple H and Stephanie McMahon come out, it was a really, really long promo. So to sum it up, it's basically Daniel Bryan trying to get Triple H to accept the match against him at WrestleMania. Triple H says he's a B+ player, and it takes more than a B+ player to have him, lace up his boots for WrestleMania. This and that, and basically Daniel Bryan's set on having the match up. Triple H says it's not gonna happen, and he tells Daniel Bryan to leave the ring. Daniel Bryan doesn't leave, so they bring out. Actually, Daniel Bryan tells Triple H, why don't you make me leave? And then Stephanie McMahon starts calling Kane. She tells Kane to come out, so Kane comes out, and Daniel Bryan right away hits a suicide dive on Kane, and then he punches him for a good, 45 seconds or something like that, until they call for security, and they come out and separate Bryan from Kane, and then Bryan leaves or stays on the ramp, and then after that, you get Del Rio in the ring, and his opponent ends up being, you hear a car, and a car comes in the arena, and it's obviously Aaron Paul, but right next to him, riding in the car in the passenger seat, is Dolph Ziggler. Dolph Ziggler's music hits, and the crowd pops. It's a big pop. And they come out, make their entrance. And it's Dolph Ziggler versus Del Rio. Pretty quick match. Del Rio hits the super kick. Dolph Ziggler kicks out. Right after Dolph kicks out, Aaron Paul climbs up on the announcer's table because he was, commentating with Michael Cole, JBL, and Jerry the King Lawler. And he distracts Del Rio, and, then Del Rio turns around, kind of ignores Paul, and then he goes for the cross armbreaker, but Dolph Ziggler counters it, and then hits the zigzag, covers him, and wins the match. Following that, Big E Langston faces off against Jack Swagger. I was surprised that, Big E was going to compete twice, although the first match anyways wasn't even a matchup. I mean, it was a match, but it was so short. So, anyways, it's Big E versus Jack Swagger, because Jack Swagger got himself disqualified, or got Cesaro disqualified twice and attacked Big E. So, in this match, right away, before anything really begins, the bell rings, I think, but right away Cesaro gets in, hits the neutralizer on Big E, and I don't know, just Big E doesn't look really strong when when he's getting attacked that much or that many times. But anyways, hits the neutralizer on Big E, and then him and Swagger argue. Swagger pushes Cesaro. Cesaro tells him, don't push me again. You just push me one more time and you'll see what happens or whatever. So Swagger pushes him again, and then Cesaro grabs him by the legs, and he's about to swing him, but Zeb Coulter tells him, come on, don't do it, and pretty much he convinces Cesaro to let go of Swagger, and then they both say, we the people, with the crowd, and that's it. Also, they announced another 2014 Hall of Fame inductee, and it was actually Paul Bearer, so that's pretty cool. And afterwards, John Cena came out to, address the Wyatt family situation. Crowd was booing Cena. Cena talked about his history in this arena, how he fought a certain someone in the Money in the Bank pay-per-view a while back, and also how he, competed at Wrestlemania in this arena, this and that. And anyways, Bray Wyatt interrupts him, and he compares Cena to a championship horse, and, in the end, he just ends a promo by saying, follow the buzzards. And then after that, they show Batista walking towards the ring, or he's walking backstage, and then you see Randy coming up to him and just telling him, I'm just wishing you luck in your match against Daniel Bryan tonight. So then Randy leaves, and Batista leaves, and Batista keeps looking back. And that was it for this short backstage segment. And then Lana comes out, I think that's her name. Basically, Alexander Rusev's manager, she brings him out. He talks a bit, really, the only thing I remember, the only thing he really says is, awesome, super athletic, Alexander Rusev. Anyways, after that, it was the main event, Daniel Bryan versus Batista. Pretty short match. It was actually, the match, I think, started at, 11 p.m. Eastern Time. Anyways, yeah, match was pretty short, and towards the end, Kane, Triple H, and Stephanie McMahon come out, and at that point, the crowd starts chanting CM Punk, because, I was thinking maybe, if they came out, then CM Punk could come out to even out the odds, and then Daniel Bryan wins the match. So I guess the crowd was thinking the same thing. But anyways, at that point, Batista and Daniel Bryan are on the outside. Batista grabs Bryan and throws him onto Randy, who's sitting next to the announcer's table. And then Batista puts Daniel Bryan back in the ring. Daniel Bryan eventually gets back the advantage, hits his kicks. He hits one big kick, and then at that point, Randy gets back up. He gets in the ring, and then he clotheslines Daniel Bryan, and that causes a disqualification. But then he prepares for the RKO on Batista. Batista gets up. He tries to go for the RKO, and you can see on the other side, Daniel Bryan's getting up. So I'm like, all right, I can picture the scenario already. Randy's going to go for the RKO. Batista's going to push him away, and that's going to push him into Daniel Bryan's knee, which he now calls the knee plus, I believe. So that happens exactly. Batista counters the RKO, pushes Randy towards Bryan. Bryan hits the knee, and then at that point, Daniel Bryan hits a drop kick on Batista in the corner, and then Kane gets on the apron. Bryan takes him out, and when he takes Kane off the apron, Kane falls onto Triple H. And then I believe Daniel Bryan goes for a running move on Batista, probably the running knee, but Batista hits him with a spear. And then Triple H gets in the ring and he grabs the microphone. He tells Daniel Bryan he's tired of his fantasy. And then Daniel Bryan kicks him right in the head. And then Batista hits a Batista bomb on Daniel Bryan. Triple H then follows that up with a pedigree. And that's it. Triple H and Kane and Stephanie McMahon stand tall over Bryan, and Stephanie mocks Daniel Bryan's yes chant to close out the show. And that was it for Raw. There was no CM Punk, so I was definitely disappointed with that. I expected Punk simply because of all the talk recently that CM Punk was going to return, that apparently a source or somebody said to Meltzer that CM Punk was going to return tonight on Raw. Looks like, well, it doesn't look like, it just didn't happen. So, looks like CM Punk will probably not return, at least, before WrestleMania, because if he was going to return before WrestleMania or in time for WrestleMania, I think he'd return in Chicago, in his hometown, when everybody's chanting for CM Punk. But, yeah, CM Punk did not return tonight. So, what did I think about the show? Highlights? Well, highlights, man. The 6-man tag team match, the rematch between the Shield and the Wyatt Family. Good match. I like the spear over the announcer's table, and Seth Rollins ditching the Shield rather than Ambrose ditching the Shield. Because I was thinking the Shield would maybe win if Ambrose ditches them. Because everything was pointing to Ambrose ditching the Shield rather than Seth Rollins ditching the Shield. Simply because Ambrose, he was nowhere to be seen at the Elimination Chamber in the 6-man tag team match towards the end there. So maybe that was intentional, but, that was definitely unexpected with Seth Rollins leaving both Ambrose and Reigns on their own, or, both of them against 3 guys. So it's going to be interesting to see next week what happens with the Shields and what Ambrose and Reigns have to say about it, or what they'll say to Rollins. And also, the Real Americans looks like they're really close to splitting up now. One thing I find funny is just Big E getting beat up whenever he has a match now with, or the past 2 weeks, when he's had a match with one of the Real Americans, the other comes in and just, beats up Big E or attacks Big E. And also, Sheamus versus Christian, I thought it was a good matchup. I thought both their matches the past 2 weeks were good matches. And, despite the crowd chanting, "This is awful," I'm thinking the crowd just isn't interested in the feud or something like that. But the match itself, man, I thought it was good. And, I would have liked to see Christian win, but like I said last week, whenever I watch a Christian match now, I just go into it thinking Christian's going to lose, expecting Christian to lose, and he does. So that way I'm not that disappointed when he does. And it's just, damn, especially in this feud, it seems like, and actually I noticed this with a lot of, I guess, Christian's feuds lately, or when he's a heel, is he'll get the advantage by attacking the superstar, maybe backstage or in some in-ring segment or something like that. But when it comes to the matches, he like always loses. Hopefully that changes. And also, they announced that on Main Event they would have Daniel Bryan versus Kane and also the Usos defending their tag team titles in a rematch against the New Age Outlaws. I believe they said that's going to be streamed on the WWE Network. Anyways, that's all I get to say. And as far as the rating for tonight's show, I'd probably give it, I don't know. You know what, I'd give it an 8 on 10, I think. 7.5 to 8, around that range. Crowd was good, but yeah, man, when you expect something and then it doesn't happen, that is kind of disappointing. In this case, CM Punk, returning, and he didn't return. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, as always, you can click that like button down below. I'd really appreciate it. And with that said, I'm out, guys. See ya.